Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Celtic Way morning briefing. It is Friday, the 12th of December. You join us quite a few hours after Celtic's 3-0 defeat at the hands of Roma on match day 6. It means that Celtic remain on 7 points in the Europa League with games to come against Bologna and Utrecht, the final two before the end of the league phase. My name is Ryan McGinley. As I said, Tony's joining me. Before we go live, or before we go and talk about what's happened today or last night rather, I'd like to say a quick shout out to our sponsors for this video. It's Simply Furniture. They're located in Hillington, Glasgow. Simply Furniture is an independent brand dedicated to bringing luxury and contemporary style into homes across the UK. With over a decade of experience in furniture retail, they meticulously source only the finest pieces, curated for quality, comfort and timeless design. From elegant sofas to statement dining sets, their hand-picked collections offer exceptional value without compromising on style. Their dedicated team ensures that your furniture is delivered with care right to your doorstep. And if you want to see the beauty up close, visit their stunning showroom in Hillington and mention the Celtic Way for a special in-store discount. All of their links are in the description. Tony, how are you doing this morning? How are things? How did you find last night?
Next question, please. Listen, Ryan, I think Celtic supporters are feeling a bit demoralised this morning, are they not? The nature of that savage beating that they took last night, and it was savage. But I'll get back to it. I don't blame the manager in any shape or form. I think the players have to take some responsibility about last night. But also, we know we've been shouting about it for months where this has come from. It's managed decline by a board of directors and people at the top who have just sucked the heart and soul out of the fans, Ryan. You know, AGM was about divide and conquer. They've hoarded money, not spent it on players, which saw the former manager leave, and he being eviscerated by club media channels. And the AGM was another excuse to have a pop at the fans as well. They've banned the Green Brigade, they've banned fan media. They're just exempt. They seem to think they're exempt from any kind of criticism here, Ryan. And all of this, we've lost to Hearts twice. We've got doings off Michelin and Roma in the Europa League. And you know what? Somehow all of this has been turned on the fact that the narrative is that somehow it's the fans' fault and the fans are to blame for the current malaise that the club's in. And we're in a malaise, by the way, and we better watch it doesn't become free fall, because it could escalate all very quickly. And I feel for Wilfred Nancy in the sense that he's walked into the set of the wrong movie, Ryan, at this particular time. I banged on about it at the time. I said, what if Martin O'Neill starts winning games? He did. I said he at least deserved him, Sean Maloney and Mark Fotheringham, they deserved to at least after the cup final, if not till the end of the season. People were saying about the performances against Dundee, St Mirren and Hibs weren't great, granted, but they were winning football matches. And this board decided in their infinite wisdom, which is beyond me, to bring this guy in one of the hardest weeks of the season. And the criticism he's getting now is ferocious. But you have to turn around and say, it's a bang average squad of players. Martin O'Neill got a tune out of them, and my only one concern about the manager is the system that he played. He ripped up the Martin O'Neill template, which was winning games, and he said he was going to introduce it gradually. So that's my bugbear and concern. But Sunday's massive now, Ryan, in the context of Celtic season. It is huge. And at this moment in time, I don't think you or I can sit here and say Celtic are going to win that cup final.
Certainly not confident going into that game, or certainly less confident than I was around about a week ago after the game against Dundee, Martin O'Neill's final game in charge as interim manager. Granted, I think it's got to be underlined as well that the performances weren't all great under Martin O'Neill, and you have made that point quite rightly, but they were winning football matches, and that is unfortunately the be-all and end-all when it comes to Celtic. Celtic need to be winning football games, and for 2 games in a row, they've lost at home. They've conceded 5 goals in the process and only scored 1 in those 2 games. So they're not scoring goals, they're conceding goals. They're playing a system that is alien to a lot of players at the moment. A lot of the usual suspects going into hiding last night, either going into hiding or dropping 3, 4, 5s out of 10. When Celtic needed to have the majority being 6, 7s last night, 6, 7, 8 out of 10 in order to get something against a really decent Roma side. Now, they've not been in good form at the moment, but coming up against Celtic, Celtic are probably the best team to play against when you're in bad form, because at the moment they'll give you a chance. And Celtic did give Roma chances. It only took them 5 minutes to get on the score sheet. It was Liam Scales' own goal. It looked as if it was Mancini that put the ball in the back of the net on first viewing. After watching the replay again, it was Liam Scales that put the ball into the back of his own net. Really good header. Unfortunately, it was at the wrong end of the park. And then a double from Evan Ferguson, particularly, I mean, two really good finishes, but particularly the second one was a real classy striker's finish from a guy who knew what he was doing in front of goal last night. Despite all the will he stay at Roma beyond January, he put that to one side and he put in a really good target man performance last night and got a brace on the end of it. He actually made some comments after the game, quite brutal comments regarding Celtic, saying that some of the players didn't know what they were doing in the system. When a striker says that, it's worrying times, isn't it, Tony?
Without a doubt. And also, Ryan, that's the kind of striker that Celtic crave, isn't it? Let's be honest. And Celtic
You've
were
got to
like with
remember
him.
that people did turn their nose up at Evan Ferguson in the summer as well.
Spoke about that, yep. We spoke about that off air before we came on, and yeah, and see that's just brilliant striker play for me. He has lost Liam Scales with that first touch. He sent Liam Scales to the merchandise of the pie stall, and one touch swivel, bang, it's in the net. Clinical. Love that kind of play. As much as it hurt when he twisted the dagger in it, I just admired that last night from Evan. So I just, he turned around, and even his movement for the first goal as well, doesn't have to do too much, the ball across, but his movement makes it, he's just in between the two centre backs and just clinical stuff, Ryan, so I thought that was, he's a Celtic supporter as well, so he claims, sorry, I'm sure he is, but yeah, he twisted the knife big time. That one. Yeah, he twisted the knife big time last night, but that's what good strikers do, and he didn't have to work too hard. And again, Celtic conceding from a corner. I know Liam Scales put it in his own net, but it's still, a set piece again, Ryan, failing to deal with it, and inside the first 5 minutes, leaving yourself a mountain to climb. But you spoke about players going into hiding. Lots of them did last night, and the only one for me whose attitude was spot on was Kelechi Iheanacho, and he has to start on Sunday for me, just because we need a goal threat. I know he missed a sitter, but he also scored a goal which was marginal, ruled out by VAR. I get that, but his attitude for me was spot on, and that's what I wanted to see. But I go back to it, I just think that our new manager's in the wrong move at the wrong time, Ryan. And I do feel for him a bit, but he's going to have to limp on to January until he can put his stamp on this team and get in some players.
Yeah, I feel for him to an extent, but at the same time, it's a job that a lot of people would be clamouring over. It's an attractive job, and it's a great opportunity for him. And at the moment, he's not getting the results that are required. Really bruising result at the weekend, psychologically, I would say, against Hearts, against the league leaders, when there was a real chance to go ahead of them. And then it was a bruising physical match against Roma. And I have heard a couple of people in the second half, or people talking about the second half, saying that Celtic played better. I'd put two things to that. I'd make 2 points on that, and I'm going to put my own opinion into this before bringing you back in, Tony. One, it couldn't have got much worse after the first half because everything was wrong with Celtic in that opening half. And two, Roma completely chucked it as a football match. Yep. And I think that has got to be underlined. Any good performance that Celtic had, and I tweeted this out last night after the game, took a bit of time to think about the game before tweeting out, trying not to be as reactionary as I have been in previous years. But Roma had the cigars out in the second half. I can't remember how. I lost count of how many times Roma gave the ball back to Celtic because, one, they knew the game was over, and two, because they could deal with whatever Celtic were throwing at them. Now, I know there was a disallowed goal, a couple of offside calls here and there, a couple of half chances, good chance from Iheanacho that went into the side netting. But apart from that, Roma were pretty comfortable in an away match. It's the second time in as many months that Roma have went to Glasgow and looked really comfortable. And I'd actually, you could make the point they were more comfortable last night than what they were at Ibrox a couple of months ago, which is quite a damn indictment.
Yeah, of course. And listen, they were 3-0 up, and it was job done. And I get that lots of people are wanting to have a pop at the manager. The bottom line is, if you don't get results, the manager will always carry the can. I spoke to Paul Lambert in midweek, and he said it's nothing to do with systems. It's all about players. You know, at this moment, that's an inadequate squad of players. So the manager's hands are tied a wee bit in terms of that. He wants to implement a system. He just doesn't have the players to carry that out. You saw that clearly last night. You worried about it on Sunday, but it was clear as day last night that the system clearly isn't working, but it's the way he plays. So and if that's the way he plays, fine. But this will reach decibel levels, Ryan, if Celtic lose the cup final on Sunday. Now, I believe he became the first manager in history to lose his first 2 matches. That's nothing compared to the noise that will be created around him if Celtic happen to lose to St Mirren on Sunday. And we are sitting here, and I think everybody of a Celtic persuasion is a lot less confident about this final than they were maybe a couple of weeks ago, a few days ago, and I don't know who was talking last night, but I heard somebody say that, in fact, it might even have been Ali McCoist in the Rangers game, and he said St Mirren would fancy their chances facing a team
I know what
with
comment you're on about, because I was watching
Wilfred
that
Nancy
game.
rather than a Martin O'Neill team. And
He said any Scottish team would fancy their chances because Martin O'Neill. He didn't make the point about Nancy. He made the point about the fact that Martin O'Neill wasn't managing Celtic.
And I, you know what, I thought, you know what, that's pretty prescient, because I think if you canvass the Celtic supporters, they would all think that as well. And it's not hindsight, and it's not certainly not myself saying I told you so. These were my thoughts from the very start. I said Martin O'Neill would win football matches. And I said he did, and then people were saying, but he's too old, he's this, he's that. He was 73 and he became 43 by the time that stint at Celtic was finished. It reinvigorated him. He was ready for it. He was up for the battle. He should have got till after the cup final. And I would argue he should maybe have got until the end of the season, because he was steadying that ship. That ship's now in danger of free falling. That's my big concern here, Ryan. Because if Celtic lose on Sunday, the mood music, which I'm very big on, and the noise around Celtic will be incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'll bring some comments in from Wilfred Nancy after the game. He was speaking to the press after the game. He was asked, Wilfred, a difficult game tonight, a difficult night tonight. What's your reading of the match? He responded saying, it was difficult. We started the game after 5 minutes. We scored our own goal on the corner. It was not easy. They put in a lot of intensity, but we didn't cope with that intensity. After that, we wanted to escape the pressure. When we did it, we didn't play forward. It was difficult. The second half was a bit better. We were able to get closer to each other to escape the pressure. After that, we had a few actions that I liked. We got in the overlap, the underlap, to attack with pace a little bit more. Yes, we missed the penalty. I think that one goal could have been better to change the dynamic. For the moment, we're struggling a bit in this situation, but it was a difficult night. He was then asked, with hindsight, if you knew how the first half was going to go, would you have picked the same team and the same system to play Roma tonight? That was last night. The idea was to make changes in the second half because we had a final to prepare. After that, we didn't play the same system defensively. We adjusted a bit. In the second half, it was the same system that we played in the first game, and we did well. So yes, it was a difficult night. Wilfred, after these first 2 games, does it leave you to think that it's a much bigger task than you thought? Or is this what you expected to do this time? I expected it. Come on, guys. I just came in 1 week ago. A few players had 6 games in a row. We had injured players who had big games coming. So yes, I expected that. I knew that this situation would happen. That's why I wanted to be positive. That's why I want to be positive. I have a lot of situations where I can be positive, but again, tonight was a tough night. It's the reality. Now the idea is to rest for the next few days and to prepare for the final and to have a good performance. Tony, that last sentence there, Wilfried Nancy saying to rest for a few days. I don't know about you. I think rest is the last thing these Celtic players need. I think they need to be out on the training pitch to understand what this manager is asking from them, tactically, physically, and mentally. What are your takes from what he's got to say after that match?
He'll find out the hard way, Ryan, on Sunday. Then, if rest and recuperation is what those players need, and he's the current Celtic manager, so I won't query that. But I'm like you. I think all things are solved on the training park, aren't they? All things are solved. With trophies and titles and cups are won on the training field because you replicate everything that you do on a match day there, and that intensity has to be high. And lots of people saying he's waffling and he's talking a lot of rubbish. He has only been in a matter of days, Ryan. He has to be given time, but the problem is it's in short supply. Patience and time are in short supply in Glasgow, especially if you're not winning. He would have bought himself some time had he won against Hearts. People might have accepted the Roma defeat and say, well, you're up against a high calibre class of opposition. He is now under severe pressure to win. Every game at Celtic's a must-win, Ryan, but Sunday's now firmly in that category, even more so for the manager himself and more so for the players. And it just shows you that how different managers can get different tunes out of players, doesn't it? So it's worrying, Ryan. I think it has to say it's absolutely worrying. And the Celtic supporters are quite rightly voicing their opinion as they're entitled to do, but it's their alarms, Ryan. They are not hitting the panic button just yet, but their hands are hovering over the alarm button.
Yeah, I just want to bring up those comments again from Nancy about rest, and Quinny does quite rightly say the players will rest after the game. Do you want them to train fully today and tomorrow? And it might have been lost in translation what he meant. I do expect the players to be back in training today ahead of the cup final on Sunday. So maybe it is just lost in translation a little bit. Maybe it's more recuperation rather than complete rest. But I would want the players to be understand. I mean, and Arne Engels made the point after the game that the players are enjoying this new system. They're enjoying learning under the manager and the new system and what he's got to bring to the table. I just want maybe I just want a different message from the manager, and I am not putting any blame on Nancy just yet, because I don't think it's fair to blame the manager for what he's inherited by the minor miracles that Martin O'Neill managed to conjure up as Celtic manager, as interim Celtic manager. I just want it to click, and I want it to click quickly, is what I'm trying to say, long story short.
You mentioned Engels. He'll be one of those players who went into his shell last night, alongside Hatate, sadly alongside the captain as well. For me, Maeda is killing time, isn't he, till he goes elsewhere. That first half, in particular for Celtic, some players' ball retention for me was diabolical, absolutely diabolical, Ryan. And I've said before, if you can't master the world-class basics, then you're not going to win a football match. And I'm talking about playing simple 6-yard passes, controlling a football, and just being productive or creative. I think Tunecti's heading to AFCON, isn't he? Is that right?
Yes, he's heading after Sunday's game.
Yeah, after Sunday's game, he won't be missed, Ryan, because his contribution has been utterly negligible since the Partick Thistle football match, when he scored the goal and seemed to be a confident player. If someone can tell me what Tunecti has contributed since then I'd be all ears and willing to hear it. And I hate having a go at Celtic footballers individually, but Tunecti really has to take a look at himself in the mirror and say what his contribution has been since that football match. It's been dreadful. You know, you need, as a winger, you need to provide assists and you need to try and chip in with goals. You spoke about it the other day, and I don't think the totals were there, were they, at all?
I talk about Tony. I talk about it all the time. Yeah, if you are a Celtic winger, you need to, by association, be a volume winger. You need to
Yeah.
contribute goals and assists, because if you're not contributing goals and assists and you're struggling to beat your man, which seemed to be the case last night and in quite a few games for Sebastian Tenecte, then what are you bringing to the team? And do you know, he was out of the team for a couple of games there. I don't think Celtic missed him all that much. He's now
Yeah.
been brought back into the team and he's not having the desired effect. Unfortunately for him, you know, he was a big name signing in the summer. He was a deadline day signing for £5 million. And so far, apart from a couple of nice performances here and there to begin with under Brendan Rodgers and maybe one or two decent ones under Martin O'Neill, he's not done anything to justify that £5 million price tag. And he's a player that when I watch him, unfortunately, it just makes me miss Jota more, because I know what Jota can bring you in a goals and assist tally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got real question marks over Sebastian
Yeah.
Tenecte at the moment, and I agree with you. I don't think he'll be necessarily. I think he'll be missed in a squad, on a squad basis, with the fact that, you know, he's one of our starting players more often than not. But right now, in terms of football and or what he's shown on the pitch, he's lacking.
Yeah, and you know, Benjamin Negro's another one that falls into that category too. That
Yep.
whole midfield last night was completely and utterly dysfunctional. They got a lesson in how to play a three at the back set and just play, basically. And it's one of the more lamentable European performances I've seen from a Celtic team in Europe. And I've watched some bad Celtic teams, Ryan, because due to the fact that I'm slightly older than you. Some guys are round about my age and slightly older than me, and they can say the same. But last night was just as poor a 45 as I've seen, as I've witnessed from Celtic in a 45 minutes in a European tie than I can remember. Just nobody seemed to be up for it at all. And it doesn't help when, you know, you ban a section of the supporters, which you can say what you like, Ryan. They bring atmosphere. They can lift footballers, especially on nights like that. Everything was lacking last night, wasn't it? There was just, for me, it didn't feel like a European tie at all. And then 5 minutes in, you realised Celtic are up against it here. This team are quality, and they showed why, alongside Aston Villa, they are the favourites to win the Europa League. And Gasperini, you know, they talk about Martin O'Neill being an old man. Gasperini's just a wily old fox, isn't he? And he just keeps doing what he does, and that's managed football teams with knowledge and wisdom and picked Celtic apart, and at points you just thought they are a quality team. So sometimes you just had to say, you know what, there's some quality footballers on show here. If you can admire it, then admire it, but I don't like admiring it when they're ripping the team that I support apart. Sometimes you have to just watch it and think, do you know what, that's what you aspire to. If we're going to take any learnings from it, then try and learn. That's how you're comfortable in possession. That's how you're clinical. That's how a team that plays with a back three should function. And it's a sore one, another sore one. But we seem to say that a lot about Celtic in Europe, don't we? And we seem to learn nothing. And somehow I can't get away from the fact that this has all been preventable. It's all started since we chased a manager out the door for asking for money from a hedge fund that they're saving for a rainy day. The rainy days have long since gone, Ryan. It is bucketing down at Celtic right now. And they now have a manager in situ who needs a miraculous transfer window, basically, to sort of get things back on track. Because Celtic, in my opinion, now need about 6 players, Ryan. More than half that team needs to be replaced.
Yeah, and I would even make the point that some of the players that were signed in the summer aren't up to scratch, and if there's a chance for them move on. If the price is right and the deal is right, then it depends on what the manager wants, of course, but I think the manager should have the final say. If he wants to implement this style, then he clearly needs the players that are able to do that. I think for as much credit as the midfield has got in some games, including the game against Feyenoord, which I've got to remind everybody was only 15 days ago. It was only just over 2 weeks ago that Celtic defeated Feyenoord in the keep, which was a great result. The midfield is an area that needs more steel, that needs more grit. There needs to be maybe not even an enforcer, but somebody that's going to. Well, you could even actually make the point that there needs to be an enforcer, because they need to enforce something in the midfield, because it was too easy to play through last night. Where else could you look at? You could look at the wing positions, which have had which have had additions in the summer, but then again you bought players on the left hand side. On the right hand side, you didn't bring in anybody. You maybe thought that some players could play on the right hand side. You find out that they're not that way inclined and they can't play there. So these are problems that have been, and a lot of the problems of last night, Tony, and I think you'll agree with me in saying this, or agree with me in this point that I'm about to make. A lot of these problems aren't new. These are problems that we've known about all season. They just came to the fore last night, and it's unfortunate that Wilfried Nancy has to take the brunt of it, unfortunately, because he's the main man. He's the manager. He puts the team out at the end of the day. But these problems that are going on aren't new, both from the hierarchy, from the club's hierarchy, to the recruitment in the summer. Wilfried Nancy after the game was saying that he accepts the challenge that's been put in front of him. He's ready for the challenge. He knew that before. He could have said no to the challenge and said that he wanted to come a little bit later. The reality is the reality, though. I knew that we had a big game coming. I also knew that it could be difficult. He used that word quite a lot in his press conference, difficult. I would agree with that. It was a difficult game to watch and a difficult game, I assume, for the players to play in. So again, the belief I have for my players is really high. The way we work, even though we didn't work a lot, is really high. So that's why I'm really confident, because they are engaged. We talk to each other, and I believe that in the next few days we're going to be able to do something good, because I feel and I see good things. It's all well and good the manager seeing and feeling good things, but we've got to see that in action on Sunday against St Mirren, haven't we?
Talking the talk, need to walk the walk, Ryan. That's the thing. And and I get all that. And Ryan, he has to be up for a challenge. What else is he going to say?
I know.
He has to be, and he has to get those players up for a challenge as well. This will turn very quickly. It's starting to turn just now, and it's only 2 games into his reign. But he will hear the brunt of ferocious criticism and screaming if Celtic lose on Sunday. When you go
ever so quickly, just on the feeling in and around the stadium. Now, I was at the stadium last night taking my seat, and amongst the support and the crowd, it was a soulless atmosphere last night. And 2 games in to a manager's reign, and I did feel the same against Hearts. That could be down to the Green Brigade not being there, the boys not being at full voice as well. They do bring a lot of noise to proceedings at the Celtic games, both home and away. But it's quite a worrying situation to be in, 2 games in, and for most of the second half, it was eerily quiet. It's a bad scenario to be in, and that's not all on the manager. That's on the board.
Yeah, without a doubt. Listen, there's an unravelling here happening, Ryan. I used the word free fall. I hesitate to say that Celtic are in free fall, because they're still in a major domestic cup final and they're only 3 points off the top of the table. These things are salvageable, but this could all unravel very, very quickly if Wilfried Nancy is not up for the challenge and his players are not up for the challenge, and it could go south rather quickly, because he's saying he's seeing good things on the training ground. Celtic supporters aren't seeing good things in the matches. It's okay if you could turn around and say, I'm clinging to that, or I can see this, that, and the next thing. I'm not seeing a lot at this minute in time. The second half was all down to Roma, just the game was won. So they genuinely did. I agree, they took their foot off the pedal. and could have actually scored more, got a goal disallowed by VAR, so did Celtic, so that's fair enough. But, Wilfried Nancy isn't to blame for the first two matches, but he has to do something on Sunday. He has to win that football match, Ryan, by hook or by crook, or this is going to turn nasty and vitriolic very, very quickly.
It doesn't get any easier after that game either, because you get Dundee United away from home, and their form has been up and down at the moment, but they're a good team, and they've got a good manager in Jim Goodwin who'll be up for that task. But we can't focus on that game because we've got to focus on the next game, which is against St Mirren in the Premier Sports Cup final. Speaking of Dundee United, St Mirren got a really good 2-0 win over Dundee United at the weekend. They've set themselves up well after. They're a team that have maybe not had a lot of the limelight on them due to because of their struggles. I know they've had a lot of praise for the way that they set up, the way that they play individual games, the way that they actually come up in games. Maybe they've not had the points to show for that, but they're one of those teams that you know what's coming. You know that they're going to be organised. You know that they're going to fight for every ball. They're going to bleed for the badge that they've got. They're going to bleed for the supporters that make their way to Hampden. You know what you're going to expect. You know what you can expect from a Stephen Robinson side. You could say the same when he took charge of Motherwell all those years ago as well. It's a huge game on Sunday, Tony. It was already big because it's the first silverware of the season, but due to the way that the last two games have transpired for Wilfried Nancy, it really is huge, isn't it, for the whole club and for the manager?
It's massive, and you and I have long extolled the virtues of Stephen Robinson on this podcast. Celtic will need to match everything that St Mirren do on Sunday in terms of attitude, being well organised, well drilled, well disciplined. It took a worldie for Callum McGregor to beat them in Paisley not that long ago. You'll expect the same. And usually I say you have to have everything go in your favour at Hampden if you have to beat the likes of Celtic at the National Stadium. But I don't think that's the case this time, because I'm just not sure what Celtic will turn up. But it cannot be under-emphasised to Wilfried Nancy just how important this football match is. You've had your kind of first couple of games bedding in, call it what you like. You have no honeymoon period. You now need to start getting results, and that starts on Sunday. Because if you don't get a result on Sunday, then, as I say, you dread to think what the mood music's going to be like. It's going to be something he's never encountered in his footballing coaching career before. And as I say, I spoke to Paul Lambert during the week, and he was saying the same, that systems are fine. Winning's the only formula in Glasgow. Doesn't matter how you do it. You can play whatever system you want, but you need to have the players to do it. And also in having those players, you need to be able to win football matches. Martin O'Neill was adept at winning football matches. Wilfried Nancy has shown so far he hasn't won any of his two football matches. He has to address that on Sunday. It doesn't matter how he does it, what system he plays, he has to win that trophy. Ryan, end of story. You're muted, Ryan.
So I have. Sorry about that, guys. Just a quick side note. It's I think I've went 1 week too early when it comes to games. Celtic play Aberdeen the following week at home at Celtic Park, which is still a difficult game against a side that have been in better form recently. But it's not as if the games get any easier, whether it's Dundee United, Aberdeen, St Mirren in the Premier Sports Cup final. Every game is difficult, especially when you're on the current run that Celtic are in terms of 2 defeats in a row. It's the National Stadium. Is there anything else that you want to touch upon when discussing that game, Tony, or anything that's maybe passed you by from last night? I know Joe Hart was pretty impassioned after the game about the need for Wilfried Nancy to have Celtic-minded people in his ear, telling him how important Sunday's game is in the Premier Sports Cup, about what St Mirren are going to bring to the table on Sunday afternoon at Hampden. Is there anything else that you want to discuss with regard to Celtic?
I have to say, you are going into the first major domestic cup final of the season, and normally you would be optimistic because it's been Celtic's kind of, it's been kind of resident in Celtic's trophy room for the past few years. Let's say that, but I think a lot of Celtic supporters wouldn't admit to it, but I don't think they're confident at all, Ryan.
Yeah,
they're hopeful.
That's where, but I mean, we would want to.
And I think
ideally, we would want to be confident going into this game and be positive.
Yeah.
But we're just calling it as we see it at the moment.
Yeah, and I think they're hopeful rather than confident and optimistic, and I just think that there's large question marks here. There's worry, isn't there, about Sunday, and St Mirren are one of those horrible teams to play against. You just know that if they get their noses in front, they'll be difficult. I think it'll be a tight cup final, Ryan. I think it could be a first goal the winner type game again. You see it be a 5-4 classic or something like that. But do you think it'll be a really tight football match?
Yeah, I'm just laughing at this fixture list because I corrected myself wrongly because we played Dundee United
on Wednesday, the 17th. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a midweek game. I totally didn't take that into account. So just to be completely clear, and apologies for any confusion that I might have caused because I was taking it in week by week doses there. Maybe it was wishful thinking. So it's St Mirren on Sunday, Dundee United on the Wednesday, and then Aberdeen on the Sunday.
Saturday.
So I'm sure that's right. And apologies for that. Yeah, the games come thick and fast, even though they're not. Even though those games aren't in Europe, they're still domestic games, and they're still a game every 3-4 days. So it's going to be fast and furious. Wilfried Nancy's going to have to get to grips with his new Celtic team, with his new players that he's got at his disposal, and we'll see how he gets on at the weekend on Sunday against St Mirren. Tony, it's been an absolute pleasure being on with you this morning. Not been the best circumstances due to the result last night, but it's been good to sort of mull over last night's events and feel a wee bit better about it after speaking with you. So thank you very much for joining me. A quick thank you to It's Simply Furniture for sponsoring this video, as well as all the videos that we do at the moment. If you want to, all of their links are in the description at the bottom of this video on our YouTube page. Why not subscribe to us on YouTube? It is completely free and you'll get notified when we go live for both pre-recorded videos and live reaction videos that we do whenever they occur. Also, if you want to subscribe to the website, all you need to do is go to www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. It's press conference day today. Again, they come thick and fast, as I said. So it'll be Wilfried Nancy and a player to preview the game on Sunday at Hampden between St Mirren and Celtic. Tony, thank you very much for joining me today.
Pleasure, as always.
And we will see you all next time on the Celtic Way. But until then, have a very good rest of your Friday. Cheers, guys.